You're with Bear Friday, Body Language, and today we're doing Frank Warren, recent interview with Kugan Cassius at the Warrington versus Frampton press conference, and this is specifically a question about the Deontay Wilder Tyson Fury fight, which Frank has asserted is on, but I'm about to tell you that it's not that clear cut. And we're starting in the middle of this interview. He's done a lot of talking already, and we're just starting here, and it's interesting where I've managed to freeze frame that. Let me just show you the context.
Christmas present to give someone, Frank.
Listen, it's 3 days, boxing fans, it's 3 days before Christmas, and it'll be a cracker, there's no doubt about it.
So this is where we're going to start, and it's interesting, this face that Frank pulls, which I'm going to call minor contempt. It's these muscles here on the face pulling up toward the nose, minor contempt, and I think that is because Frank believes that the punters will believe the things he says. I think he thinks that the average fan is just not that smart. It's not terrible body language, but, you know, minor contempt there. Let's get into the real juice.
Frank, when I spoke to you last week, the plan was that yesterday would have been a Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder press conference in London. We now know the date of that fight, which will be December 1st. We're still obviously waiting for a venue confirmation.
Now there's loads there while he's listening to that, and I'll pick out a few things. Let's have a quick look.
Frank, when I spoke to you last week, the plan...
That shrug of the shoulders there, because he was talking about the Warrington-Frampton fight that he's selling, and now Kugan's taking it onto a slightly different issue. So there was a proprietary shoulder shuffle there.
The plan was that...
And he raises his head to take this question on the chin.
Yesterday would have been a Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder press conference.
Now he's looking away, and I believe there's a lot of other press in the room, and I think Frank is looking to assess who's listening, to see who's paying attention to what he's about to say, to see whether it's just been lost in the midst of this interview, or whether a sharp-eyed journalist or a sharp-eared journalist is waiting to catch something here. And also, he's just looking away because he wants to avoid this issue if he could. You know, he's been caught here.
Yesterday would have been a Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder press conference in London.
He said that yesterday was going to be this press conference for Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, and it didn't happen. Yesterday
would have been a Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder press conference in London. We now know the date of...
Again, when he says we now know the date, he's looking away again. And a lot of body language analysis looks at the eyes and where they're looking, and you've got to bear in mind that in this situation there are a lot of people in the room, and sometimes he's just going to be looking around, but it's a subconscious attempt to avoid, to look away, to be away, you know, mentally from this question. But also, like I say, I think he's eyeing up the other journalists whose ears may be pricking up when they hear Kugan asking these questions.
We now know the date of that fight, which will be December 1st.
And there's a little self-satisfied smile here, and that slight sneer of contempt.
We're still obviously waiting.
And here, really interesting, there's a little look down. And that's a subconscious one. I believe that what Frank does is he prepares his answers. I think he lies awake the night before thinking about the difficult questions that are going to be asked and how he's going to answer them. And here he's referring to his constructed memories. I think he's looking into his memory at something he's prepared, written mentally for this very occasion. And it's only quick. He only needs to refer to that quickly in his subconscious.
December 1st. We're still obviously waiting for...
And now he's slightly biting his lip as he's preparing to deliver this response.
A venue confirmation.
The venue will be confirmed.
And again, and this is very telling, it's like a stuttering blink. And I'm going to play this. Let's just see this in half speed.
Venue be confirmed next.
You see that his blink fires several times, and it hides this look down to the right, his right.
Venue be confirmed next.
And he also looks across to his left side. This is a really interesting eye movement. It's like an internal conflict. He's hiding his preparation. So he's looking into his prepared answer and he's hiding the fact that he's doing that. And then he's nervous, he's agitated by this, because in his emotional memory, there's a different story. There's something else going on. And that's why he looks to both. That first look, I would say, is looking at these journalists, and they're probably print journalists, who just sort of hang around and look busy whilst they collect up the information that others spill while they think they're not being heard.
Venue be confirmed next Monday at the press conference.
And he nods there as if to assert that, slightly at the end of that statement.
Okay, so was there any particular reason for that?
And this is telling as well. He's gone into his shell there, he's nodded, and he's just, if you were playing poker with someone, you'd say they're deliberately trying to hold back from showing any emotion. And why is that? Why is he holding back from showing? I don't think this is a conscious move. I think this is almost subconscious. He's not showing his hand here. But why is he being so closed down and defensive?
That kind of week delay on that? Okay, so was there any particular reason for that kind of...
You know, a promoter's supposed to do lots of talking, and on this question, he just answers it with a pre-prepared sentence, a statement, and then closes down. Let's just watch it all together.
We're still obviously waiting for a venue confirmation.
Venue be confirmed next Monday at the press conference.
Okay, so was there any particular reason for that kind of week delay on that?
The venue will be confirmed next Monday at the press conference. And no more furore. So sometimes it's quite telling what people don't say, and you'd think that he would seize on this opportunity to talk about these things as a promoter, but in fact he kind of shuts it down. And then it's very telling again as Coogan asks the next question.
Is there any particular reason for that kind of week delay?
Right there. Is there any particular reason for that week delay? And he instantly looks into his constructed memory. So he's instantly looking at his prepared answer, the thing that he's written in his head the night before. He knows this question's coming. Why the delay? And he's going to have an answer for it. But
On that?
he also does this shifty glance across. And again, I believe this is looking at the journalist. I don't think this is an indication of his mental process, this eye movement. I believe this is looking at the journalists, because they're the people he's trying to fool the most. He wants to make sure that they don't get the upper hand on him. But that fades into a slightly different look, and remembering the things that have been said and done regarding this Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury contract negotiation and fight. But he's not going to tell you those things. He's going to reel off that answer.
For that kind of week delay?
He's going to reel off that answer that he's pre-prepared, that he's so sharp. Frank's good at this. He's sharp. Once he's got that logged in his brain there, at that early stage in the question, he can let his mind wander onto these other things whilst he delivers the answer that's been pre-prepared. Let's see how he does it.
Any particular reason for that kind of week delay on that?
Really, it was just sorting out the venue. That's all it was. It was just sorting out the venue.
His head shakes, and you'd think that might be because they haven't sorted out the venue, but actually it's an involuntary... That's the thing he can't hide. He can just reel off the answer that he wants you to hear, whilst in his brain he's thinking about the things he doesn't want you to hear, and his body language just gives that away with a discontented shake of the head as the cognitive dissonance kicks in.
Any particular reason for that kind of week delay on that?
Really, it was just sorting out the venue. That's all it was. It was just sorting out the venue.
And again, as he finishes that, it was just sorting out the venue. You can see his brain processing it. So he says, we were just sorting out the venue, and he repeats it, and he's then forced to look across to his prepared answer again for another sentence, because he's preoccupied with the things that are playing on his mind that he's not telling you.
Really, it was just sorting out.
Just sorting out the venue. He looks up to Coogan when he replies there.
At the venue, that's all it was. It was just sorting out.
And as he repeats that, he looks over here to his prepared statement in his mind.
Sorting out the venue.
And he comes to a mental pause, because he hasn't got much more than that prepared. And the other things that he's now thinking about in his visual memory are not things he wants to disclose.
Really, it was just sorting out the venue. That's all it was. It was just sorting out the venue. You can't announce the fight if you haven't got the venue, so that was the problem.
And an almost embarrassed chuckle there. And that's not embarrassment because they haven't sorted out the venue. It's embarrassment because he's usually very sharp with the replies that he's pre-prepared. He hasn't managed to really come up with a very plausible reason. And when he says it aloud, the pre-prepared statement, it doesn't sound that good to him. And he's slightly embarrassed by that.
Really, it was just sorting out the venue. That's all it was. It was just sorting out the venue. You can't announce the fight if you haven't got the venue, so that was the problem. But it's all sorted out.
Rumours of LA and Staples Centre coming into play. Can you make...
And again, when that rumours question comes in, he does this, going to take it on the chin, he's prepared.
Rumours of LA and Staples.
And he nods down because the rumours are of the LA Staples Centre in the venues, not of the other things that he wasn't telling you. And this is something that I'm going to come back to now.
Really, it was just sorting out the venue. That's all it was. It was just sorting out the venue.
Go back to this look midway through that statement of just sorting out the venue, where he's almost squinting into the distance. That's very telling as well. And here we're going to get to the crux of this. This is what you all want to know. Is the Deontay Wilder fight on, as Frank says it's on? Or is Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury far from on? Well, I'm 90% sure that it's as far on the distance in terms of being on as Frank is looking here. So not on. Quite a way off from being on. But it could be on. It's there in the distance on the horizon. Just to give some context here, I'm just going to take you back to an interview with Eddie Hearn. I'm just going to take you back to the Eddie Hearn, Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua negotiations. I'm not going to show you any different videos. I'm just going to mention that if you remember, Eddie Hearn said there was a contract that was offered them, the 50 million deal I think it was, but there were no details in the contract. It didn't say where the venue was or whether they'd have to travel. There were TV rights and issues. There was all sorts of things that he said he wouldn't sign a contract until he had all these things in place, that he couldn't sign a contract like that. And that was a stutter step in the Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder negotiations. I'm sure you'll all remember that. And I remember at the time Frank Warren saying that Shelley Finkel was easy to deal with and he couldn't understand why Eddie Hearn was having these problems dealing with Shelley Winkle. Shirley, I did that accidentally. That's how it gets in your head. That's how marketing works. Shelley Finkel. Oh, I don't even know now. See how marketing works? See what Eddie Hearn's done to us there? Anyway, Frank said that Shelley was easy to deal with, and he didn't understand why Eddie was having a problem. Well, I believe now, I think Frank understands why Eddie was having a problem. I think Frank is finding Shelley difficult to deal with. I think Frank and Tyson signed one of those no specific details contracts. I mean contracts. There are contracts and there are contracts, aren't there? There are contracts that are serious legal binding issues, and there are bits of paper that say, yeah, I'll fight you. So I think Frank and Tyson and MTK have signed that preliminary agreement to fight. And then there are many other issues that have to be ironed out before the official, legally binding contract can be signed. This is not a totally new idea. Tyson Fury voiced it on his Twitter that he wanted to have specific judges. I would have thought that would have already been put in the contract. So I doubt they've got to that point yet. And this is what's going on here. Frank's still in some kind of negotiation. I don't think it's just Shelley, you know, I'm saying I'm 90% sure here. These are my instinctive feelings here. I don't think it's just Shelley Finkel that's being difficult to deal with. I think Tyson Fury is being difficult to deal with. I think Deontay Wilder's team are being difficult. And Frank here can see the fight in the distance. He's made fights before. He's going to promise you the fight. And he himself is pretty confident he can pull it together. But rather than come out and say that, he'd rather say, it's on, don't worry about it. A bit like when someone says to you, have you done the chores yet? Yeah, I've done that. Have you emptied the dishwasher? Yeah, I've done it. And you know you haven't done it, but you will do it before they see the dishwasher. So you might as well just say it's done. That's not advice there from me. That's not good advice. Just do the chores, then say you've done them. But you know what I mean. You know, it's a little white lie to keep the public who he has minor contempt for, who he believes will just listen to what he says, to keep them happy. You know, there's a lot of pressure on Frank. There's BT Sport. I think he wants to keep everyone happy. So he's saying what everyone wants to hear, when behind the scenes, this fight is taking a bit of work to get ironed out and fully organised. So when he says it's on, it's not on like Christmas, which is absolutely guaranteed. There's still quite a lot of planning. There's still two sides to this negotiation who haven't completely agreed on all the terms. I'm 90% sure of that. That's how I feel. But of course, that's my opinion. Let's just watch it again.
The venue will be confirmed next Monday at the press conference.
Okay, so was there any particular reason for that kind of week delay on that?
Really, it was just sorting out the venue. That's all it was. It was just
That's like, I have to stop it again. It was just sorting out the venue, that's all it was. It wasn't just sorting out the venue, was it? Otherwise you wouldn't repeat that and say that's what it was. It wasn't just that, there's something else. Whether it's the judges, whether it's the money, whether it's the gloves, whatever it is, somebody is dragging their heels over something.
the venue will be confirmed next Monday at the press conference.
Okay, so was there any particular reason for that kind of week delay on that?
Really, it was just sorting out the venue. That's all it was. It was just sorting out the venue. You can't announce the fight if you haven't got the venue, so that was the problem. But it's all sorted out.
Rumours of LA and Staples Centre coming into play.
There's lots of rumours, but you know, they're rumours.
We love a rumour here.
In fact, he does love that rumour because it deflects away from the things that he was worried there would be rumours about. He loves the rumour that it might be in LA. That sounds great, doesn't it? Doesn't sound like the rumour where Deontay Wilder's refusing to fight if this, or Tyson Fury is refusing to fight if that, or the rumour that they can't quite see eye to eye on this, whatever it is, you know. Oh dear, poor Frank, poor Frank. So is it on? It's not on like Christmas, that's absolutely guaranteed. It's on like the gas, which you think you might have left on, but it might not be, but you're pretty sure it isn't, but it is. And then having watched the rest of this interview, I noticed this bit at the end, which kind of bolsters the point I was making. So let's just have a quick look at this.
Frank, can you tell us anything about the rematch clause for this fight with Wilder and
Because our
Fury?
contract has a confidentiality clause in it. If the other side want to discuss it, then if they say it's okay to talk about it.
Very interesting stuff. Can he tell you about the rematch clause? Now, what I find so interesting about this is he doesn't say which way the rematch clause goes here, Coogan. He doesn't say if it's a rematch clause that Tyson gets a rematch, which is kind of the question he's asking because there's been implication that Tyson would get a rematch, that it's a two-way rematch clause. Apparently Ben Davidson said this is just hearsay. On my part, that's just hearsay. I heard it in a YouTube video, so I don't know if it's true, but you know, there's this rumour going around that there's a rematch clause for Tyson, a two-way rematch clause. And that's what he's asking about, but Frank jumps to a conclusion almost. Let's just check out which part of his mind he's drawing from here.
Clause for this fight.
I mean, he touches his ear here in a sort of classic tell of discomfort.
With Wilder and
Because our
Fury.
contract.
No, because our contract, and he's looking here into his memory. This is the absolute truth that he's delivering to us here.
has a confidentiality clause in it. If the other side want to discuss it, then
He's looking between his memory and Coogan, the interviewer, and he even shakes his head at the end of that because again there's this cognitive dissonance of things he's thinking about that he could say that he's now not able to say, and I believe it's true. There's a confidentiality clause, which is probably why he couldn't tell us. Why the announcement has been dragging on, as we discussed earlier. And there were things that he was thinking about saying back then that he can't say now. And my guess is that if they've put the confidentiality clause in, that it's that it's Wilder's team that are creating issues.
Clause for this fight with Wilder and
because our contract has a confidentiality clause in it. If the other side want to discuss it, then
a lot of that little, there's this classic Frank Warren geezer shoulder shift.
The other side want to discuss it, then
which is almost confrontational, almost preparation of confrontation. So again, if the other side want to discuss it, he's referring to Wilder's team here as the other side now, not as his mate Shelley, his good buddy Shelley that's easy to deal with. Now they're the other side, and he's popped that confrontational shoulder. So
if they say it's okay to talk about it, I'll talk about it. But that's our problem.
And he's
discuss it, then if they say it's okay to talk.
And he fluffs that line there. I can't understand what he's going to say there. I'll fill you in. But he fluffs that line. And again, now he's looking deeply into his construction part of his mind. So he's now trying to find this response. Again, I think it's pre-written response, but he's working on not telling us the honest truth there. But you can see why, because he's being stifled by the confidentiality clause.
Contract has a confidentiality clause in it. If the other side want to discuss it, then if they say it's okay to talk about it, I'll talk about it. But that's our problem.
And there's that pause there now. Let's just watch it all for context, and you'll see what's going down here.
Contract has a confidentiality clause in it. If the other side want to discuss it, then if they say it's okay to talk about it, I'll talk about it. But that's our problem. If it is a problem, I don't think it is a problem. I'm sure it's very easy to make the winner against Anthony Joshua.
What was that? That was a dropping of the ball if you're a promoter. He admitted that was their problem. They've got a problem. The rematch clause, making the Joshua fight, that's the context of this question. But he admits there's a problem, and it's their problem. They've got it, they're dealing with a problem. That's our problem. And and he stops when he says it because he's run out of answer there. But he quickly picks up the ball again and carries on running by saying it's not a problem to make the Joshua fight. And that's where he starts this laughter, because again he's embarrassed laughter, laughing at his own statements as he says them. He's realised he dropped the ball there. He's laughing at his own mistake, and he's laughing it off because he's deflecting into this Joshua question. This rematch clause allows him to deflect into the Joshua zone, where he's got a lot of pre-prepared statements, and it's not about what he, it's a way of taking attention away from the mistake he just made. So he's laughing his way out of that mistake. But let's watch it all again in context. They've got a problem in these negotiations. It's not just the rematch clause. It's something he's not able to talk about.
Frank, can you tell us anything about the rematch clause for this fight with Wilder and
because our contract has a confidentiality clause in it. If the other side want to discuss it, then if they say it's okay to talk about it, I'll talk about it. But that's our problem. If it is a problem, I don't think it is a problem. I'm sure it's very easy to make the winner against Anthony Joshua.
So yeah, is it on? Is it on, Frank? I wouldn't trust Frank to let me know if the telly was on, let alone the Wilder fight. I mean, I really hope the Wilder fight happens. I want to see Tyson Fury go over to America and take that belt off Deontay Wilder the same way as he took the belts off Klitschko in Germany. So is it on? Is the fight on? Put it this way. If Frank told me I had my shoes on, I'd still have to look down and check. We are now taking requests on Bear Friday Body Language. So any videos you want to see analysed, please leave a link to the video in the description below. and the most upvotes I'll try and do videos on. And I'd also like to offer my services as problem solver. So if you've got any problems, start your comment with Dear Bear, Dear Bear, and then tell us your problem, and I'll do some videos answering your problems, like an agony bear. Let's see if we can get that going. Leave a comment. I won't reply to any of them.